Coffee Break German, Lesson 32.
Herzlich willkommen zu Coffee Break German und noch einmal herzlich willkommen hier in Innsbruck.
That's right, we're back in Innsbruck, Austria for another lesson of Coffee Break German. Ich heiße Marc.
Ich bin Thomas und Marc, du bist hier, um dein Deutsch zu verbessern, richtig?
Ja, richtig. Ich bin hier, um mein Deutsch zu verbessern. I'm here to improve my German. Und du, Thomas, bist hier, um uns zu helfen.
Stimmt genau.
You're here to help us with our German. And as you know from last time, I was preparing for my trip to Innsbruck. I had arrived in the airport and we had a chat in the airport, which we recorded, and then we used that as lesson 31. And this week is the conversation that I had earlier today when we were traveling from the airport to the hotel. So, lass uns anfangen.
Fangen wir an.
So in this conversation that you're going to have a listen to now, I was asking for information at the airport information desk on how best to travel from Innsbruck Airport into the city. Now, you're going to be hearing questions that I ask, and I have to be honest, Thomas helped me form these questions before we had the conversation. And you'll be hearing some answers that you'll understand and other answers that you might not necessarily fully understand. And you'll also find that the person I was speaking to was speaking very, very quickly. Sehr schnell.
Sehr, sehr schnell.
So we'll have a listen, and then after the conversation, we are going to go through it and help you understand all the bits of the conversation.
Okay, Marc. Hören wir uns das heutige Gespräch an.
Say that again.
Hören wir uns das heutige Gespräch an.
Okay, I heard heute in there.
Ja, heutige Gespräch, so today's conversation.
Okay, so heutige is like an adjective for today.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then das Gespräch, the conversation.
Uh-huh. And you said, hören wir uns das heutige Gespräch an. Now, is hören and an one of these separable verbs?
Like ankommen or anfangen, which we heard earlier.
Yes, so we did. So anhören means to listen to.
To listen to, ja.
Also hören wir uns das heutige Gespräch an.
Los geht's.
Guten Tag.
Guten Tag und willkommen in Innsbruck. Kann ich Ihnen helfen?
Wir fahren in das Stadtzentrum. Gibt es einen Bus dorthin?
Wo genau im Stadtzentrum?
Mein Hotel ist zwischen dem Hauptbahnhof und der Fußgängerzone.
Also nehmen Sie den Bus zum Hauptbahnhof. Sie gehen aus dem Flughafen und danach gehen Sie rechts. Die Bushaltestelle ist auf der linken Seite. Dort sehen Sie den Fahrplan.
Vielen Dank. Kann man auch mit einem Taxi fahren?
Ja, sicher. Die Fahrt dauert ungefähr 20 Minuten im Taxi, aber es kostet mehr als der Bus.
Die Fahrt dauert länger mit dem Bus?
Ja, vielleicht eine halbe Stunde oder 40 Minuten, weil der Bus oft halten muss.
Wie viel kostet ein Busticket?
Ins Stadtzentrum 3 Euro. Ein Taxi kostet wahrscheinlich etwa 20 Euro.
Also gut, wir fahren mit dem Bus. Das Taxi ist bequemer und fährt schneller, aber es ist teurer.
Guten Aufenthalt in Innsbruck.
Vielen Dank. So, as I'm sure you've now realized, that man was speaking very, very quickly indeed. Sehr schnell, nicht wahr?
Er sprach sehr, sehr schnell.
Yeah. Okay, now, as we were doing the conversation, obviously some parts I had prepared in advance. I had certain questions that Thomas wanted me to ask of the man, but his answers were slightly less prepared, shall we say, and some of it I understood, some of it I wasn't quite sure about. So we're going to go through the conversation now, and we'll talk about each individual part of the conversation. Let's listen to the first couple of lines. Guten Tag.
Guten Tag und willkommen in Innsbruck. Kann ich Ihnen helfen?
Wir fahren in das Stadtzentrum. Gibt es einen Bus dorthin? So it's fairly straightforward so far. We started with a Guten Tag, and the man also said, welcome to Innsbruck.
Willkommen in Innsbruck.
He went on to say,
Kann ich Ihnen helfen? Which we probably heard before, which a shop assistant might ask, or everybody where you go
Exactly. Kann ich Ihnen helfen? Can I help you? And he's using the polite form because obviously I didn't know him before we started speaking. When he asked me that, I said that we are going into the centre of town. Now, the centre of town is something that we've come across before. Das Stadtzentrum.
Das Stadtzentrum. And if you remember, Mark, when you were saying it the first time, you said, wir gehen in das Stadtzentrum.
Yeah, I wanted to say we're going into the town centre, which in my head was wir gehen.
It's translated literally, but then it implies that you're like walking, because gehen is also associated with walking.
Okay, and to be honest, although it's quite close to the city, I didn't really want to walk from Innsbruck Airport into the town. So we used fahren. What does fahren literally mean?
It means to drive.
Okay.
But you would translate it differently, because when we say wir fahren nach Berlin, it means we're going to Berlin, but only implying we're using a car or a bus or something.
And of course, it's linked to abfahren.
Yeah.
To depart, which is a means of transport departing, driving off, as it were.
Yeah, exactly.
So wir fahren in das Stadtzentrum. Then I asked a question that, again, was one of those questions that you helped me with beforehand. I wanted to ask, is there a bus to there? Is there a bus to the Stadtzentrum? And what did I say?
Gibt es einen Bus dorthin?
So I would have been able to work out, is there a bus? Gibt es einen Bus, because it's the accusative case and it's einen Bus.
Yeah.
But that word dorthin was not a word that I had come across before.
No, but it's close to when you remember wohin, where to.
Yeah.
So dorthin is like the answer. There
to. Yeah. So dorthin, there to. So is there a bus to there? Gibt es einen Bus dorthin?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's listen to the next part of the conversation. And one thing you'll definitely recognize here is the exact location of my hotel. However, you might not be familiar with the word for the pedestrian area, and that is
die Fußgängerzone.
And think carefully about the gender of that word. Have a listen to this next section.
Wir fahren in das Stadtzentrum. Gibt es einen Bus dorthin?
Wo genau im Stadtzentrum?
Mein Hotel ist zwischen dem Hauptbahnhof und der Fußgängerzone.
Also nehmen Sie den Bus zum Hauptbahnhof. Sie gehen aus dem Flughafen und danach gehen Sie rechts. Die Bushaltestelle ist auf der linken Seite. Dort sehen Sie den Fahrplan.
So the man in the information office asked you, wo genau im Stadtzentrum, which implies where exactly in the city center you want to go to.
I've heard you using that word, genau, before.
Stimmt genau.
Yeah, so it means exactly, and we can use it in that context too. So where exactly in the Stadtzentrum? And I said, mein Hotel ist zwischen dem Bahnhof, oder zwischen dem Hauptbahnhof und der Fußgängerzone. So I'm saying that my hotel is between the station and the pedestrian area, the pedestrian precinct, perhaps.
Yeah, pedestrian area. And you're using the dative because you're describing zwischen and where exactly. So der Hauptbahnhof becomes dem und die Fußgängerzone becomes der Fußgängerzone.
Okay. Now, we then had some instructions. We had some directions. The man said, nehmen Sie den Bus zum Hauptbahnhof. Now, we've had, nehmen Sie den erste Straße rechts, take the first street on the right. This time we're being told to take the bus to the main station.
Exactly.
Nehmen Sie den Bus zum Hauptbahnhof. And then how did he continue?
He gives us further instructions where we can find the bus. So he says, gehen Sie aus dem Flughafen, so leave the airport, and danach, afterwards, gehen Sie rechts.
And here we're using gehen because literally we are walking. So walk out or go out of the Flughafen, the airport, und danach, and afterwards,
yeah, exactly.
go right.
And then he says, die Bushaltestelle ist auf der linken Seite, a phrase we heard very often in previous episodes. So it's on the left side.
Absolutely. And then the final part, what was it he said?
Dort sehen Sie den Fahrplan.
So den Fahrplan or der Fahrplan in the nominative case?
Der Fahrplan, the timetable, which we heard previously in episodes about arriving and departure.
That's right. Okay, it's time now to listen to the next part of the conversation.
Klingt gut.
Vielen Dank. Kann man auch mit einem Taxi fahren?
Ja, sicher. Die Fahrt dauert ungefähr 20 Minuten im Taxi, aber es kostet mehr als der Bus.
Die Fahrt dauert länger mit dem Bus?
Ja, vielleicht eine halbe Stunde oder 40 Minuten, weil der Bus oft halten muss.
Okay, so in this section, I asked about an alternative means of transport, and I used one of those modal verbs. So, first of all, my modal verb was kann, and it meant that my infinitive was going to have to go to the end, my infinitive being fahren. So my question was, kann man auch mit einem Taxi fahren? And Thomas helped me a bit with that one, I have to be honest. Kann man auch mit einem Taxi fahren?
The one kann man is like if you're asking, can someone, can you generally, and then auch, we heard that one as well.
Also, or too, yeah.
Mit einem Taxi, with a taxi.
Okay, so can one, is it possible to go by taxi also? Can you also go by taxi into the centre of town? And just that mit einem Taxi, it's das Taxi?
Yeah, very good.
And mit einem Taxi is the dative case because it's coming after mit, I believe.
Stimmt genau.
Now, Thomas, one thing about this man, in English, if we say, can one also take a taxi, it sounds quite posh. It sounds not really everyday use. Is man used?
It's very common in the German language. You can say kann man, can one, or muss man, has one too.
Okay.
So whenever you ask a question, muss man den Bus nehmen? Do you have to take the bus?
Okay.
So if I'm speaking in general terms, is there a possibility? I would never say muss ich oder kann ich einen Bus nehmen.
Okay, but you could say that. It would make sense to say muss ich, but you're kind of personalizing it there.
Can I right now, me and a person, take a bus, or am I too old or too small? Or
okay. Whereas in English, I mean, I would be saying something like, can you take the bus, or can you go by taxi? Could you translate that by saying, kannst du mit einem Taxi fahren?
Yeah, but then I imply if you are capable, you as a person capable of driving a taxi.
Okay, so we'll stick to can man in order not to be specific just now. I guess it's like in Spanish when you say se puede, can one, is it possible, se puede comer aquí, can you eat something, can man hier essen?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Then,
so the man replied, ja sicher, yes, of course. Then what did he go on to say?
He explained how long the drive takes and he says, die Fahrt dauert ungefähr 20 Minuten im Taxi, aber es kostet mehr als der Bus.
So it sounds so much easier to understand when you say it nice and slowly like that. Die Fahrt dauert means lasts, okay. And then he used the word
ungefähr. Roughly,
yeah. So the journey lasts roughly 20 minutes by taxi.
Im Taxi, ja.
Im Taxi. But
aber es kostet mehr als der Bus.
So I'm guessing that means but it costs more than the bus.
And here very important is the small word als, because we already heard mehr, which means more, and then als means then. So more than, mehr als.
And just to be absolutely clear, from my Scottish pronunciation point of view, we're talking about more than, T-H-A-N, as opposed to then, T-H-E-N.
I do admit I have difficulties with these two letters.
Okay. So more than, mehr als, is kostet mehr als der Bus. It costs more than the bus.
So, for example, we heard the word größer, which means bigger, taller. So I can say, ich bin größer als du.
So I'm taller than you.
Exactly.
Okay. So we also heard a word later in this conversation, schneller. And I think we could say that this man speaks faster than you.
Spricht schneller als ich.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, moving on then. I went on to ask, does the journey take longer by bus? Die Fahrt dauert länger mit dem Bus.
Die Fahrt dauert länger mit dem Bus.
Okay, let's listen to the answer that our friend in the information office gave.
Ja, vielleicht eine halbe Stunde oder 40 Minuten, weil der Bus oft halten muss.
Okay, so vielleicht is perhaps eine halbe Stunde. A half an hour. Yeah, half an hour. Oder 40 Minuten.
Ja.
So, or 40 minutes. And then he said, weil der Bus oft halten muss. Now, not knowing really much of this vocabulary for definite, I think I can probably guess that he's saying here the bus often has to stop. Halten, presumably like halt.
Yes, I think we heard the word Haltestelle, which means like a bus stop.
Yeah.
So halten means to stop.
Okay, so weil der Bus oft halten muss.
Yeah.
We've got
Because
some strange word order there. So because the bus often
holds to have.
Yeah.
Or have to.
Have to, yeah. So what's happening there is our modal verb müssen is going to the end.
And that's because of the word weil, because it starts a subordinate clause.
Yeah,
What's it called?
Subordinate clause, that's right.
Subordinate clause.
Fancy grammatical term there. Basically, it's
So-
the part of the sentence that can't exist on its own. And the weil is starting it because, and the weil means because, so weil der Bus oft halten muss. Muss. Not muss. Okay.
Muss.
So because the bus has to stop often.
So if we have another example, maybe then it's clearer. Mark, how would you say, I don't want to go out because I am tired?
Okay. To go out.
Or I don't want to go.
Okay. So to go in this sense would be gehen. I don't want to go. Ich will nicht gehen.
Exactly. Because I am tired.
Weil ich müde bin.
Yeah. It's not ich bin müde.
Yeah.
So the bin moves
goes
right to the end.
Okay, so weil der Bus oft halten muss. I suppose there we've got another complication because there's a modal verb in there. But weil ich müde bin is more straightforward. Ich will nicht gehen, weil ich müde bin.
Yeah. Or if you want to do it with a modal verb, you could say because I cannot sleep, weil ich nicht schlafen kann.
Weil ich nicht schlafen kann. I suppose it's not too much more complicated. Weil ich nicht schlafen kann, because it's the conjugated verb each time that's going to the end. Good. Okay, let's listen to the final part of this conversation.
Wie viel kostet ein Busticket?
Ins Stadtzentrum 3 Euro. Ein Taxi kostet wahrscheinlich etwa 20 Euro.
Also gut, wir fahren mit dem Bus. Das Taxi ist bequemer und fährt schneller, aber es ist teurer.
Guten Aufenthalt in Innsbruck.
Vielen Dank.
My first question here was straightforward enough. Wie viel kostet ein Busticket? How much does a bus ticket cost? And the answer was?
Ins Stadtzentrum, which ins is just short for in das Stadtzentrum.
Ins Stadtzentrum as opposed to in das. Could I say in das if I wanted?
Yeah.
In das Stadtzentrum or ins Stadtzentrum. And it was?
3 Euro.
So €3. And then there was a slightly more complicated answer for the taxi.
Ein Taxi kostet wahrscheinlich etwa 20 Euro.
So two interesting words there. Wahrscheinlich.
Means probably.
Okay.
And then we have etwa, which is again roughly. It's like ungefähr, very similar. So he just probably roughly 20 euros.
Okay, so he doesn't want to confirm anything. He's leaving it wide open.
Uncertain what it actually costs.
So I made a decision based on this. I said, wir fahren mit dem Bus. And my explanation, which again you helped me with previously, was, das Taxi ist bequemer und fährt schneller. Aber es ist teurer. So we've got three different more words there. We've got schneller, first of all, that we've mentioned before, faster, but bequemer. The word bequem means?
It's comfortable.
Comfortable. So das Taxi is bequemer, more comfortable, und fährt schneller, and it goes more quickly.
Aber es ist teurer.
But it's more teuer, which is expensive, dear.
Exactly. And now I finally know it's true. Scottish people are kind of geizig.
Because I decided to go by the bus. To go by the bus, I said, what did we say earlier? Die Schotten sind
nicht geizig, but that was wrong.
Okay, well, finally, the kind man, not like Thomas, the kind man wished us einen schönen Aufenthalt in Innsbruck, a pleasant stay in Innsbruck. Right, let's listen one more time to the whole conversation, and hopefully this time you'll understand lots more of it.
Guten Tag.
Guten Tag und willkommen in Innsbruck. Kann ich Ihnen helfen?
Wir fahren in das Stadtzentrum. Gibt es einen Bus dorthin?
Wo genau im Stadtzentrum?
Mein Hotel ist zwischen dem Hauptbahnhof und der Fußgängerzone.
Also nehmen Sie den Bus zum Hauptbahnhof. Sie gehen aus dem Flughafen und danach gehen Sie rechts. Die Bushaltestelle ist auf der linken Seite. Dort sehen Sie den Fahrplan.
Vielen Dank. Kann man auch mit einem Taxi fahren?
Ja, sicher. Die Fahrt dauert ungefähr 20 Minuten im Taxi, aber es kostet mehr als der Bus.
Die Fahrt dauert länger mit dem Bus?
Ja, vielleicht eine halbe Stunde oder 40 Minuten, weil der Bus oft halten muss.
Wie viel kostet ein Busticket?
Ins Stadtzentrum 3 Euro. Ein Taxi kostet wahrscheinlich etwa 20 Euro.
Also gut, wir fahren mit dem Bus. Das Taxi ist bequemer und fährt schneller, aber es ist teurer.
Guten Aufenthalt in Innsbruck.
Vielen Dank.
So that is where we're going to leave this episode of Coffee Break German. Next time, we are going to be continuing on our journey in Innsbruck. And I believe that our next conversation that we've got scheduled to record is for breakfast tomorrow morning.
I think so. Hopefully with somebody who speaks a little bit slower.
I very much hope that. I believe all our listeners will also be hoping to hear a slower speaker also. If schneller is faster, how would we say slower?
Langsamer.
Langsamer, of course. Can you speak more slowly, please? Okay, it's time to say vielen Dank und bis zum nächsten Mal.
Bis dann. Tschüss.
As ever, you can head over to coffeebreakgerman.com to find out all the information about how you can access the bonus materials for this lesson and all the other lessons of the Coffee Break German course. Bis bald.
Wiedersehen.
This is a production of the Radiolingua Network. Find out more at radiolingua.com.